The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests of the Side Project Live are not necessarily those of LRN.FM, Tuiville, the Illinois Libertarian Party, and a bunch of other people.
We'd like to invite you and all the members of your household
to gather around and join us now
for a very special episode of
Side Project Live. And what's so special about it?
I'm not wearing any pants.
And welcome once again, friends and neighbors, to another side-splitting laugh-a-minute episode of the Side Project Live. This episode of Side Project Live is brought to you by water. Water, it quenches your thirst. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Once again, from Morris, Illinois, this is Jim Goebel.
From Lockport, Illinois, it's Eric Ferguson.
And has your coffee been evaluated by the FDA?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it has.
As actually, my friend Bob says.
I think it's the USDA.
USDA. Well, I don't know. Caffeine's a drug.
That's true.
But as my friend Bob says, H2O.
It's DHMO. That's the stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and it's
for those that haven't been through that, that's some funny stuff right there.
Look up the oh gosh, it was on a Penn and Teller episode, bullshit episode, and I can't remember. it was on their environmentalism episode. They're talking about environmentalism. They got people to sign a petition banning dihydrogen monoxide.
Yes, dihydrogen monoxide.
Oh god, that show was so brilliant. And then I heard recently Penn Jillette saying that he's actually thinking about bringing the show back, but bringing it like straight to Netflix or something. Which in this day and age, that's becoming like the big outlet for stuff like that. So if he does that, I'm going to resubscribe to Netflix. I might resubscribe before then. But the funny, my friend Sean and I, we're starting a new podcast called the Pie Factory, which it's not about brothels in Nevada, but rather it's about classic arcade video games. The Pie Factory, once again, for a screen in the game Donkey Kong. Very few people have ever seen that level. But he was, we're talking about Netflix, and in the past I was saying that, Netflix didn't have the movies I wanted to see, like The Godfather, Citizen Kane, and all that. He messaged me yesterday, and he's like, oh, by the way, don't watch The Godfather. It's a snooze fest. Of course, that makes me want to see it even more.
Oh, that's awesome. It does have slow moments, but wow.
Not every movie that wins an Academy Award for Best Picture is a good movie.
That's funny. Well, duh.
There have been many years where I've seen like Academy Award nominated films and have actually been more entertained by the movies that actually got the worst reviews in Hollywood that year.
It's the stuff that came out in the winter. It's just like, especially the music. The movie's not quite as much, but for the most part, but especially the music. Who wins the Grammys? Everybody's record came out in December.
Yeah, you know what? And that's the thing that pisses me off, too, is that to be nominated for an Academy Award, not only do you have to be in the calendar year, most movies that were early in the year don't get nominated or rarely win. Lego Movie, a prime example. That should have won Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. It wasn't even freaking nominated.
Or funniest joke, just anything. I mean,
yeah,
whatever.
And then on top of that, your movie has to be released in New York or Los Angeles. So you can have something that's really, really good being open nationwide January 1st. But as long as it opens in New York and Los Angeles on December 31st, it can be nominated for an Academy Award. Screw those people in the Midwest. I mean, what do we want? People from Peoria actually watching our movie? Huh.
Yeah, it's all about putting it in front of the right eyeballs, and that's,
Yeah, and then you get like the People's Choice Awards, which are based on votes from the people, and then you get people like Pia Zadora winning Best Actress.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the President Choice Awards, and he's elected by the people. Stupid people.
The worst of those award shows, ever since cable came out, there have been like award shows up the wazoo, and the worst one, the most pointless one, is the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award. I mean, come on, really? The only one that's just as pointless is the MTV Movie Awards.
Yeah, and the November election.
Yeah, and the November election, of course. But then again, that's not really a popularity contest. But well, they have to get that in front of the right people, and
it is. That's all it is. Popularity.
Yeah. So it's basically the same thing. There's a certain number of people in the professional organization that get to vote on it, and your vote doesn't really technically count. There was one back, I think it was sometime in the 70s, where all the electoral votes in one state went to the mainstream candidate, except for one, which actually went to the libertarian candidate. So
yeah, and that was dissent. That was, if I remember it correctly, it was not legal.
Yep. Which all of the votes in a state have to go in the electoral college have to go toward who won the majority in that state, but it should be a percentage of it goes to that, because then you actually have it gets me going,
man. It gets me going. Then you got someone throwing a fit. Well, that's why we should have to eliminate the electoral college. No, put it back the way it was supposed to be.
Right, but maybe if you have X amount, because this way it evens the playing field. It works like it's supposed to. Right. Like Congress, the House of Representatives is supposed to represent the people, and the Senate's supposed to be more of a.
They represent the state.
And they even broke that. They broke that.
They broke that a long time ago. They're supposed to represent the state. You don't run the government. Your representative runs the government.
It's supposed to be based on the number of
president.
It's supposed to be based on the number of states versus what the population wants. That was the compromise between the small states and the larger states, and that's the way the election system is supposed to work, with the popular vote and then the electoral college. But it doesn't work that way. Once again, they screwed it up.
They broke it on purpose, and they broke it on purpose to control elections. It's the reason why it was done. That's why they broke it. Only 2 states have a policy that, although usually broken a little bit, have it not winner take all. There's only 2.
Now, I got a philosophical question here. Is it possible to go off topic when you haven't even gotten on topic yet?
Yes.
I got to say this real quick here. A few things. We've got to do some housekeeping here. First of all, if you want to contact us, you can call our Google Voice number, 815-200-4912. I just realized that's an anagram of 1942 or 1492. Either. Ooh, wow, gosh, I'm good at this. Our Twitter is at the Side Project 2, or you can use the hashtag TSP Live to grab our attention. Our email is thesideproject2@gmail.com. You can get our archives at tsplive.com for our back show. We're on iTunes. We're also on the TuneIn radio app. Just search for the Side Project Live. And you can hear us just afternoon on Sundays at twoevil.com. We're also on Stitcher. And if you'd like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/TSPLive and make a low per episode donation. And I really got to fix that page up, because I just kind of threw it out there and just didn't do much with it. You'll notice I didn't read that you can get our show on RadioFubar.com every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central, for the live show. That is because Radio Fubar, as of May 9th, is no longer going to be a thing. So if you go to RadioFubar.com, I don't know what you'll see, but that's pretty much the situation as it is. We've had a good run with Radio Fubar, and I'd like to thank Mr. Producer for getting us back on the air. Me and Luck were doing the show, and we just quit because we were just out of ideas. We didn't think we were going to go on, so we let it sit about 8 months or so, and then of all people, Mr. Producer's wife, who was a friend of mine on Facebook for some reason, I can't remember why, contacted me and said that her husband was running this network, and so we got back on air live, and it kind of re-energized us, and then here we are. But it's been a good run, and I could have done more for the station, but sometimes things get in the way, unfortunately. But you can still get our back shows at tsplive.com. We are still going to do the show. The show's not ending at all. We are going to take a 2-week break. Figured this would probably be a good time to just kind of like let the juices re-energize, so to speak, to regroup. But when we come back, we are still going to do the Google Hangouts live. I don't know if we're going to be broadcasting on any sort of other network live as of yet. I've already got one feeler out, but I haven't heard back from them yet. And we're going to go from there on that. So there's that. And then, let me think, there were 4 things I needed to mention. The second thing, actually, I think I mentioned 2 of them. The second thing is that, and I briefly mentioned this last week, a little fuzzy on this toothbrush. Don't ask me. I get distracted easily. Hey, there's a shiny object. Holy crap, there's a sock on the floor behind me right there. Boom. Anyway, me and a friend of mine, Sean Courtney, got a new podcast going. Episode 1, we hope will be up on Monday. It's called The Pie Factory. It's a classic video arcade game show. This week's episode, we're talking about Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr., or not Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3. Every episode's going to have a theme, and I'm not going to tell you what the theme is this week, although I was thinking about it, and there are actually 2 potential themes on this one. So, go ahead and give us a listen. You can find us at Fab4IT. That's FAB, the number 4IT.com/Pie Factory. He Sean has a IT business on the side, and plus he's a fan of the Beatles. Duh. So hence the URL. Next week, we are going to be doing the games Atari's Firefox, based on the Clint Eastwood movie of the same name, and Zookeeper. And we're not going to tell you the theme on that one, which that one's kind of a stretch. But so there's that. And I'm starting up something new too. It's not going to be a consistent thing. It's I'm going to be every now and then, maybe once a week, once every other week. It depends. I got a new thing going called 8.5 Miles with Jim. And what it is that I'm going to set up a Google Hangout on air, and I'm going to put my smartphone in my little holder on my bicycle, and I'm going to ride it for 8.5 miles, which takes me anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes, and just talk about things. If you go to Facebook and search for 8.5 Miles with Jim, the very first episode of that is up there. And
yes, and I'll be doing 0.85 miles with Eric.
0.0085 miles.
By the end of the summer, if I get out and I actually bicycle, by the end of the summer I work up to greater distances. But if I go out now and try 8 miles, call 911.
Yeah, my coughing, as you can hear, I got like a really horrible cold, not really horrible, really mild cold a few weeks ago. It lasted a day and a half tops, but it was just enough to get my bronchitis acting up again. And of course, I had a ride that I had to do. Well, I didn't have to do. I paid for it this last Sunday. It was the Folks on Spokes Easter ride, which I was going to do the 75-mile route, no, 75-mile route, but I was just so out of shape I couldn't do it, so I did the 55. I was struggling the last 15 because of the wind and everything, but I thought my cough was going to be just like horrible and I wasn't going to make it through. But surprisingly enough, as long as I was riding, my cough was pretty much in check. It's just when I stopped when it started acting up and that. So, oh man, I've got some adventures. So if you want to check that out, just like I said, facebook.com/, just search for 8.5 Miles with Jim. Used to be called 1 year of biking, but since I've been doing this for the better part of 4 years now, I'm like, yeah, it's long past 1 year. So, Mr. Yuck. I'll have you know, a year and a half ago, I did 100 miles.
No kidding.
It took me 8 hours, and I was slow. There were people that were cruising along at like 18 miles an hour on their bike, and I'm like, how the hell do you get that fast? I'm struggling to do 12.5.
Yeah.
I've actually got it up to 13 now, and I'm wanting to get it up to at least 13 and a half by August. But there you go. So, hey, 15 minutes in, we haven't even talked about our main topic yet. How's that?
Yeah. Well, that's okay, because that won't take very long, and Leck's not here today because he has to work. So.
That is true. Leck is before you know it, he's going to have his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I just know it.
Well, maybe we can get one of our compadres to check in. If Brian's watching, maybe he'll chime in.
Hey, if anybody's out there, you want to join in, just send me a message. I'll bring you in.
Well, why don't we get to the subject?
But yeah, because you brought this up last week, because we briefly touched on this. We talked a little tiny bit about our about how we got to be interested in the concepts of liberty or libertarianism. And you brought up, because Eric is special. He's got my private text number. So he texted me and said, why don't we talk about how we got to where we are? And I'm like, that's a really good idea. Me and Leck did it once, like the very, very first episode of the show, way back in episode 1 in 2010. And wow, we've been doing this for a better part of 5 years. That's insane. So, but we've really never talked about yours, and then I could always go ahead and rehash mine. So where did you start? I mean, how did you get interested in this?
Well, like most things for most of us, we're products of our environment. That's just the way it is. That's how.
If I may quickly interrupt, just one moment. Sure. We do have the Google Q&A open, so if you got any questions or anything for me or Eric, feel free to use that. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we got too much further. There
you go. Yeah, we're not. You're not born a jerk. You have to learn that. And
you never met my brother. He's a good guy.
Ideologies, philosophies, religions, all that sort of stuff. It comes from parents and peers and friends and grandparents and all that kind of stuff. So I came from a primarily Republican household. Even though Dad was in the labor union, he couldn't stand the labor union. Used to drive him crazy. He hated the fact that they told him who to vote for. He just couldn't handle it. And was smart enough to figure out that unchecked liberalism that most of them were about just didn't get the job done. It was wrong. Well, as it often goes, if I'm not a Democrat, I must be a Republican, because that's all there is. Those are the two options, right?
There's on, there's off, there's white, there's black, there's
exactly.
There's Frost, there's Nixon.
I always, even when I was younger, I was always in a minority. Coke or Pepsi, I'll take RC. Mac or Windows, I run Linux. I had an Amiga. I just always. It was just always
Amiga. You and Sean Courtney would get along.
Yeah, it was always different. So it just seemed like a natural fit when I deviated from the standard. It was appropriate. So in the around 1990, give or take, early 90s, I was involved with the public access TV channel. And back then, shoestring budget, used equipment, stuff that the cable company was throwing away, duct tape and baling wire. I mean, it was really rough going. But you're arguably providing a community service. You cover, some things, parades and junk, and you cover the city council meetings, and occasionally you cover the budget meeting, and, you do stuff like that. So, the cities would chip in, comes from their franchise fee. For those that don't know, all of your utilities, which hang on for it, because here it comes with your internet bill, they pay a franchise fee. So in order for the electric company to provide you electricity, they pay the city a fee to provide electricity in the city. It's another form of taxation. Thank you, government, for helping me. There are these franchise fees. Helping, yeah. So the cable company, same deal. They have a franchise fee. So what we did was, because we're in trouble, if we don't get some of this gear fixed, we don't buy a new camera, we don't do something, this is going to die. So time to use the common phrase, creative sources of revenue.
Stealing.
Creative sources of revenue. So we went looking through all the stuff, and we looked through the paperwork. This is me and some of the people that are, in the cable TV, community access TV thing. Mm-hmm. In the franchise agreement that they have with the city is a clause that gives them the right to charge a given rate for this franchise fee. And the clause is, if neighboring communities that have the same company charge X rate, you're allowed to charge that also. Automatically, all you have to do is just say, you're going to do it, and you can do it. City was not doing that. They were collecting less than they could have. Not that I want people to pay more, but we needed the money. So we go to the city council, and we present this stuff, and we show them, look, here's the thing, and we found for you a pile of money. And it wasn't a huge amount, but it turned into, and back then, a reasonable amount of money, but it was something on the order of like another 70 grand. And we're like, and here's, where we can use this. And we had, an outline for, these video cameras and a tripod and this thing and that thing. And it wasn't even all of it, just, portion of it. And you said, look, we can stretch this out over time. And so here's the deal. And they're like, well, thanks for bringing this to attention. So the city council responds, thank you for bringing this to attention. We're going to enact that. And we're going to use all of the money for this museum. These were the good guys. This is almost an all Republican thing, even though most of the positions are nonpartisan, but they are who they are. It's a Republican stronghold community. That is what it is. Right. And I went through all this work and outlined how I'm going to use the additional funds, not even all of them, but some of them for your benefit. And you gave all of the money to somebody else. Wow. Thanks, government, for helping me. So that was and I'm a youngster then. So this is my first introduction to being disenfranchised by one's government. I'm only a few years into my voting career, and I've discovered that these guys are real scumbags. Not that the museum was a bad thing, not that they couldn't use the money, but it was my money. I found it for you. What? Let me decide how much they get. Nope. We're going to do that for you.
But you got an attaboy.
Yeah, pat on the back. Thanks for helping the city find some more money. We're going to spend it as we see fit. Up yours. Yeah. And so, and again, here I'm a young voter. I mean, I've only been old enough to vote in a couple of elections, and I'm already feeling this disenfranchisement. And I'm seeing, of course, attack ads on TV. They're a scumbag. No, they're the scumbag. How about both right? Could that be that they're both right?
Why choose?
And that's what's rattling around inside my head. Why choose? So 1992, because I'm bored. First thing in the morning, I'm flipping around and I spot this fellow on C-SPAN 2 on a Monday. For some reason, I'm watching TV. I don't know. Nothing else on. And out of school for whatever reason. Don't know why. Andre Maru talking about running for the White House. I found this video, by the way. C-SPAN archives all this stuff. Their search isn't all that great, so use the Google. But they archive all this stuff. And this is a great speech. Sharp, really sharp, a little naive. And you get a lot of that with, some libertarians. They don't. And as we've personally been taken to task on some things, you guys are missing some. Please enlighten me.
Let us know. Yeah, exactly.
So there's a few things in there that we now know more of why it happens. And he's like, why does this happen? It's ridiculous. Well, there's a reason why it happens. Doesn't make it not ridiculous, but now we know what the reason is. So, but otherwise, it's a pretty good speech. And, I learned a lot, and it was just amazing to me that someone running for the White House, had a sense of humor. That was, I found remarkable. He was a pretty funny guy. That he had a sense of humor, could tell a joke about others and himself. It was great. and posing questions and potential answers, and just like it's amazing to him why you don't hear this from other candidates. And then I'm watching it going, wow, that's really incredible. What the hell is a libertarian presidential candidate? What is it? Never heard of it. Had no idea. Never heard of it. So began looking a little bit, and remember, there's no hot and cold internet on tap back then, 1992. So it takes a while to learn about these things and meet people and stuff. So I started down that course of, learning people and learning people, learning things and meeting people, or learning people and meeting things, whichever, I don't know. And that was pretty much it, and I was sold on it. I mean, it was just like, I don't know all this stuff. I don't know if all this things that they're saying is true or not, but what I do know is the big two are full of beans. Just, that was it. They're full of nonsense. And this seems like something that I'd want to do. So a number of years go by, and I'm just kind of in there a little bit. Then I meet this guy. I have the great libertarian author.
You actually met him?
I met him. I have autograph. I don't know if it shows up on the camera.
Oh, I can see that. Oh, that's awesome.
In the bright light. So I have Harry Brown's autograph from the autumn of 1990 as he's running for president. And his speech was just fantastic. And I'm like, this is it. This is something I want to do. And
if I remember correctly, in 1990, he was. I actually recall him running ads for his campaign, and if I'm not mistaken, he was actually giving that book away for free that year.
Yeah. And if you went to one of his dinners or various things like that, a lot of it might have been fundraiser function. So you pay $30 at the door, but get a free copy of the book, get a photograph, get an autograph, all of the above.
He wrote the very awesome gift for my daughter that we did this last Christmas.
Yeah. And that was it. And he's talking to a room of, primarily younger people who I think were in the same position as I was, trying to sort this stuff out, at least at the function that I was at. And, trying to be encouraging, hey, why don't you run for office? Really?
Nice.
I could do that. I'm thinking to myself, I could do that. And then shortly thereafter, I forget how the introduction happened. I don't remember. I remember he called me, but I don't remember how the name got there. I completely irrelevant. I think it's because I had sent $25 in and joined the party, I think is how that happened. And so you're on the database. And so I get a call from the then president of the Libertarian Party of Illinois, Austin Huff, and says, why don't you run for office? Here's what's going on. We got these two positions open. No one's running for them. I plan on running for this one. You can run for the other one. Let's petition together. And I'm like, okay. Having no idea how crazy difficult that is. And I don't recommend it. It's so damn hard. If you want to do it, please, more power to you. And I'll help. I'll come out and carry a clipboard around and gather names for you. It is so stinking hard work. It really is. So you
were saying that you've actually still got some stuff for yard signs in your basement there.
Oh man, it is so stinking difficult. You have to be completely committed and go out and do it, and have someone who's encouraging you to run to call you up on Saturday morning. Hey, 6 a.m. Get your ass up. We're going out to whatever. Oh man. All right, you got to have that person, who's on your case. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You're just going to, I'm sleeping in. The hell with this. No, man, if you don't get these names, you're not on the ballot.
Exactly. And it's as we've documented on this show in the past, it's a lot more of a pain in the butt for third parties than it is major parties. And even that before too long might even be moot.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And I was excited. I think this was great. This is going to be a thrill. How many people, will go through their entire life, bitch and moan about the way things are. Oh, these politicians, that George W. Bush, that son of a bitch, and on and on. What did you do about it besides vote for the only other alternative?
Mm-hmm. And it's not even for office. And it's not even running for office. I mean, there's a lot of things anybody can do. You can't run for office because you got too many skeletons in your closet. Fine. You can write letters to the editor, call radio shows, donate your time and money to a candidate that's running that you like.
Make a donation.
There's a lot of things you can do.
Circulate petitions, put a sign in your yard. I mean, there's stuff you can do, but get involved at least at that level.
Don't be a slacktivist.
You're going to sit at the bar with, your stupid Corona Light and a chunk of fruit in it because it's undrinkable without it, and complain about, the president and have no idea who your state rep is. Please don't vote.
And then of course, our president was talking about making it mandatory to vote, and then it's mandatory to vote in Australia. Otherwise, they'll write you a ticket. And I'm like, please don't. That's scary.
You don't have to run for office, but get involved somehow. But I can say that I did that. I actually tried. And even if I'm wrong, I could be completely wrong. What I want to do simply will not work, never happen, can't win, blah, blah, but fine. I tried.
Right.
I tried. And so I've been, I haven't looked back. It's been great. And as I learn more and more and more about libertarianism, I like it more. As questions come up over the years, well, what about this? And if I think about it, I can always, without fail, I can always find a way where government made the situation worse, or it's irrelevant, but never better. Never better.
As I've said in the past, I say it all the time, I don't know, honestly, that if we had a libertarian government, that it would work. I honestly don't. But I know what we have now isn't working.
Yeah, I think it would. I'd like to believe it would. Logic tells me it would. When you simplify it out to something else, just two neighbors, haggling over a used wheelbarrow, the private discussion works better than having, some third-party infiltrator, sort this mess out that takes a share of it. Yeah, I'll decide who gets the wheelbarrow, but I get to keep the wheel. Well, but
the thing that gets me is in the past, you were talking about, you think that it would logically work. In the past, as people know, I don't buy into conspiracy theories or anything. I'm skeptical of everything. And then you get onto these skeptic websites or podcasts or whatever. I've subscribed to a few of them, Dogma Debate and the Atheist Experience and a few other skeptical, podcasts and that. And then they're skeptical. Oh yeah, we're skeptical of everything they say, skeptical of the government. Yet every single one of them is pretty much Democrat. And I'm like, well, you must not be very skeptical if you're putting all of your weight behind them. And that really actually pisses me off more than conspiracy theorists. So taking the libertarian banner, because these are people. I mean, the skeptics are people that should be using their mind. Yet they claim they're skeptical, but they're not.
Sure. And the thing is, look, if you believe in a libertarian philosophy, even if it's a thing that you don't like, it doesn't benefit you, or doesn't matter. I try to stick to that. Government will break this. Even if I would prefer that this regulation was there for my personal benefit, I think a private industry would be better at it. I want this regulation to go away. That might mean it's going to be botched up for a while. Tough. That's just the way it is, and you have to be willing to accept that. Another interesting thing that happened along the way was back then, about 1992, 94, give or take, I was trying really hard to enjoy my personal Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I tried really hard, and thanks to a Seventh-day Adventist friend, I took a real interest in this book and this Jesus character and stuff. And now, man, I'm not as militant as the late Christopher Hitchens, but anti-theist is a little more like it. The interesting thing about that is the political affiliation doesn't change. You still fit in libertarianism. And if you watch, and I mentioned it before on the show, and I saw it, flipping around on C-SPAN, because pretty much nobody else covers it except C-SPAN. You watch the convention, and you've got people there in, $1,000 three-piece suit, and knowing they had, their driver brought them in their Bentley, and it's fantastic. And then there's somebody in the front row in a bumblebee costume, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And it's just an absolutely amazing thing. It's all are welcome. It's just, and not many, but you'll see faces of color more so than Republicans often. It was just astounding to me that it was just this, all these people get it, that we can be completely different from one another and still agree that government is botching all this up. All of it.
You bring up the fact that the Republicans claim to be large tent. Last year, we had, I believe his name was Andrew Markle on the show. He was a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, but he was I don't think he was high up in the party, but he was like running for some local offices or something. And he is a gay man. And then the Republican Party of Indiana came out and started supporting the traditional marriage thing. And he totally left the party. We actually had him on the podcast, and we're talking to him for a while. And no, they're not big tent. The libertarian experience is one of diversity, and it's funny. Nothing to do with politics or philosophy, but I mentioned earlier I did a sponsored ride this last weekend. It was the Folks on Spokes Easter ride, and I made an observation that with these sponsored bicycle rides, we don't see white people, we don't see black people, Hispanics, gay, lesbian, male, female. We just see a bunch of people wearing dorky looking pants.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, like if you mention, okay, whatever it is, I don't care if it's, dark skin or homosexuality, whatever it is. But, here's these people in the room discussing this. And it's like, you know what? I don't, regardless of which side of the argument you're on, I don't have a problem with, I might personally have a problem with it. You're a jackass. But if you want to hang a sign in your window that says, I refuse to serve homosexuals, that's your thing. And if you want to give up that portion of your potential clientele, go ahead. Stupid.
Yeah, I won't darken your door.
Yeah,
I won't
choose to go somewhere else, even though it doesn't affect me. I'm welcome in the store. I think you're a jackass. I'm going to a different store. That's just the way it is. What you don't need is government telling you what you must and must not do. And that's the amazing thing about it, is you can come to that part of the argument easily. Mm-hmm. And that's just always attracted me about that. And now, as I get a little older and as these companies get bigger, and I'm not anti-corporatism, I'm a pure capitalist. Please go on and make as much money as you possibly can. Go for it. When you're asking me for money, now is where the discussion begins. Mm-hmm. I think Berkshire Hathaway has enough money. I don't hate them. I don't think they're some great evil. I don't hate them for being successful and wealthy. I'm going to do my part to not give them any more money. That's all. Just leave it at that.
By the way, Berkshire Hathaway owns Geico. Just throwing that out there.
Yes. Berkshire. Well, I pick on Berkshire Hathaway because they're one of the top offenders in this nonsense. Yep. But there's plenty of others. And I talk about it all the time. You want to talk about a grand conspiracy? Conspiracy implies that it's being hidden. A surprise party is a conspiracy. Your friends are conspiring for you or against you. Look at it however you want, but that's what that is. It's a conspiracy. They're not hiding anything. These companies are open about it. You can go to the Google and look it up. Presto. It's right there in front of your face. They're not hiding it. It drives me crazy that you have a Warren Buffett tickling the ear of this and the last and the one before him, the president, going, here's Mr. President, here's my opinion of what you should do with your fiscal policy. And, after all, I'm a multi-bazillionaire. I must know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'll do that, Warren. And it makes him billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Billions.
You have to fight that. You have to fight that. And it's so hard to know. When you see the list of companies that Berkshire Hathaway owns and the companies that they own, even minor, stock, it's just absolutely amazing. And I talk about the people that own the country. Trust me, Berkshire Hathaway and GE and Citigroup, these people own the planet. They own it.
It's
outright.
not
They
the
own land,
Rothschilds.
they
It's
own
not the Freemasons. It's not the Illuminati. It's Berkshire Hathaway.
Berkshire Hathaway. They own it. Do you know what Berkshire Hathaway is worth? Their net worth is $1.5 trillion.
They have never had a stock split. Their stock right now is like 32,000 a share.
Trillion, half trillion, 500 billion. Think about that the next time you buy some Duracell. There's a reason why I buy Tenergy, headquartered in California. They make them in China, whatever, because they're not Duracell. Berkshire Hathaway, by the way, Duracell, currently owned by Procter & Gamble, another one of the owners of the country. Berkshire Hathaway owns about 50% of the stock in Procter & Gamble.
I did not know that.
Yes, and looking at purchasing Duracell outright from Procter & Gamble for almost $5 billion. You
I'll have to keep that in mind.
Next time you buy some AA cells, consider not buying Duracell. That's all. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And then you start seeing, who these companies are. Procter & Gamble makes the Duracell. They also make the Gillette. So I'm going to buy, Rayovac instead. That's Sunrise Brands. They make the Rayovac. They also make the Radio Shack store brand and Varda and a couple others. And they make the Schick. So if you don't want to buy, a Gillette razor, you get the Schick. That's the other company. It just goes on and on. And you start to see that there's only a handful of companies, Sony and Berkshire Hathaway.
Currently, when it comes to shaving materials, when on the rare occasion I do shave, I'm actually a member of the Dollar Shave Club. Well, I remember.
There you go. Yeah, get with them.
Like
Get with
a couple of bucks a month, and their razors are decent, but they got like add-ons that you can purchase that are really good. They got like a shave butter, which is really excellent. But
get with them.
Their blades are actually made by a company not affiliated with any of the major brands.
Yeah. Get with them. Get with Harry's is another one. They're actually a British company.
There's a lot of places online where you can buy them, like 30, 40 at a time and just store them if that's your thing. I like the convenience of Dollar Shave Club only having a few sent to me every several months or so.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up, and these things come and go. So if I could rattle off a list of companies that they own and don't own, it changes, day by day. Total assets currently at Berkshire Hathaway, $526 billion, more than $500 billion. It's just absolutely, ridiculous the amount of stuff that these companies own.
I loved how Warren Buffett was all like, "Oh, the rich should be paying more, and here's a huge check for the government." And I'm like, you know what? I have like several $1,000s in debt because of health issues and that, and you're giving a check to the government, which 90% of that is going to go to bureaucracy. You're not actually going to be helping people. And there was a report, and I don't have the citation. Once again, everybody look this stuff up. Don't take our words for it. Look it up, because quite frankly, I forget quite a bit. But if the government was listed as a charity on the government's own list, they would be the most inefficient charity in world history. 90% of that stuff goes to waste. The Department of Defense is always losing millions, sometimes billions of dollars, spending money on tanks that we don't need or don't want. And who was a friend? I was reading a story recently where did somebody tell me a story where there was an army detachment that was tired of their old weapons that they had. They weren't working or anything, but then they petitioned the government to get new weapons. They're like, sorry, we don't have the money for it. Yet they're spending millions and billions on these tanks that they don't need, because the tanks that they're using right now are actually just perfectly fine. They're still working. So I mean, think about your charity. At this point, I still say probably the only thing in the government that they do well is the National Park Service, but even that has tons of waste. I mean, there have been scandals about the concessionaire fees and contracts, and there are places in national parks in California where drug cartels have actually moved in, chopped down all the trees, and started drug operations inside the boundaries of the parks.
Oh man, nice. It's tough. It's really tough. If you decided tomorrow, okay, you know what? I agree with you. I'm not going to do anything that gives $1 to Berkshire Hathaway. Good luck, because they own the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Corporation, who runs the railroad. So if it doesn't ship by CN on a train, if the product that you purchase got from where it was to where it is on a train, if it was on BNSF, Berkshire Hathaway made some money on it. It's bloody near impossible to get away from.
It's kind of like trying to buy something that's had no components made in China. You
yeah,
can't
look, and you mentioned Geico. Yes, Berkshire Hathaway owns Geico. Now, keep in mind who Geico is. Geico is government employee
insurance company.
So you already see what's going on there. Warren Buffett encouraged this and the previous president to go forward with, these bailouts, and Berkshire Hathaway buys up as much stock as they can while these companies are tumbling. And so far they made something like $200 billion on the bailout. They own the world. Fruit of the Loom. Berkshire Hathaway owns Fruit of the Loom. Acme Building Products, Benjamin Moore. You wonder why government's all about, we got to get housing starts up, because Berkshire Hathaway is in real estate and they own Shaw Industries. So if you buy carpet or floor for your house, the Berkshire Hathaway owns that. On and on. John Mansville, is there insulation in this house? Berkshire Hathaway owns that. It just goes on and on and on. And they're just one company. They're just one company that does this stuff. And again, it's not anti-corporatism, but know who your corporation is. I think is
actually you're not in. I just popped a cough drop for those who are interested. You're not anti. I think you're saying is that you're not anti-capitalist. You are against the corporations owning everything, and there's a big difference between capitalism and corporatism.
And I'm not against they having the legal process to get there, but you need to know who they are, and it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's hard. Yeah. I'm not going to say that it's just, they're going to volunteer and tell you how easy it is. It's not. But I mean, these guys own a portion of or have investments in Walmart and DirecTV and Goldman Sachs and American Express and Coca-Cola. And every time you purchase something, one of those products, a little piece of the pie funnels back to Warren Buffett's pocket. And
they're basically Shark Tank before Shark Tank.
Yeah. And that's just one guy. And then he can go to the same thing and hit Citigroup and go and see what they're involved in, and Bank of America and Sony. And you start to see that these handful of companies and handful of people own the world. Not that libertarian politics is going to solve that, but you're sure not going to solve it with Republicans and Democrats who are personal friends of these people, who have stocks with these people, who, you want the government to fix healthcare. Members of Congress own hospitals and own pharmaceutical companies. They're not going to fix healthcare. They're not going to bring the cost down.
I just thought it was an amazing coincidence that when the president proposed his quote unquote Affordable Care Act, that he was getting millions in campaign contributions from the insurance companies. Figure that one out. That's just coincidental, of course. That's just all coincidental. And of course, it's just coincidental that Walmart was one of the biggest people crying out in favor of the Affordable Care Act. I mean, that's just all coincidence. There's no connection whatsoever.
They're not gonna fix it. They're not going to fix any of that. And that's
well, they are going to fix it, but not in the sense of the word "fix it," meaning make it better. They're going to fix it like the Chicago White Sox fixed that game back in 1918.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so I remain hopeful with libertarianism that you can get at least some kind of inroads to put the brakes on this stuff. You can't reverse it. You can't force Berkshire Hathaway to spin off, Geico. No. It's not going to happen. But you can, put the brakes on some of this stuff, because the government interference with it. If they want to buy something up, how come they don't get sued for monopoly when they own all of it? Whoever they own all of the whatever it is. Well, because they are the government. They're not going to do it because they're members of the Senate.
It's funny because one of the biggest objections to libertarianism is like, well, the corporations are going to run amok and they're going to do blah, blah. I'm like, what the hell is happening now? What's happening now? You say it's not going to get any. You say it's actually going to get worse than this. I just don't see how that's possible, because if in the best case scenario, they will have an equal voice with the regular people in a libertarian society.
Right.
The way it is now, since they've got the money, they can make it's the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules, and they got the gold, they're making the rules.
Yeah, and when you start to see the number of people on, say, the presidential cabinet that are, the chief operating officer of, some oil company is the vice president of public relations of the USDA, and you're like, how in the hell does that happen? And it goes on and on and on and on. They're all people that are in positions of power in these supposed, by the the Democrats, these evil, greedy companies, they're in the cabinet.
Yeah.
They're in the cabinet.
Yeah, I'm not one for like conspiracy theories or any of that. Well, the fantastical ones, but there actually is a conspiracy of corporations getting people into government places so that they have special treatment from the government, not to take over the world or kill everybody. Yeah. But I mean, it's all about the gold and the power. That's the nutshell.
That's not to say
they don't care about you and me.
Yeah, and that's not to say that libertarians are immune to that. It could very well be. Yeah, it could very well be that, when you start getting some libertarians elected to some of these high places, that, the corporation won't come along with a briefcase full of money and go, here, do this.
I'm a human being and I have a price.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if anybody out there wants to buy me a GoPro camera for my bicycle rides, I'm not going to turn you down.
There you go. Well, we got about 10 minutes. If you want to jump in with some of your stuff, Jimmy, now that I hogged all the time.
No, because we never really heard your story, but me and Luck have pretty much dropped hints about it.
Yeah. There is a wiki entry, and some of it, even says right on there that factual accuracy compromised, out of date, blah, blah, blah. And it's hard because these companies buy and sell portions and sell some stock and stuff on all the time. So, it's never going to be completely up to date. But there actually is a wiki entry, if you search for it, list of assets owned by Berkshire Hathaway, just for curiosity. And go take a look at it, and you'd be amazed. I
will have to look that up, because that does sound
amazed at where your money goes. They're just one. And I pick on them because they're one of the biggest ones that does this.
But what's amazing is if you really look into it, what companies own what other companies, like a McDonald's, if I'm not mistaken, at one time owned the Ponderosa Steakhouses back in the 70s, 80s. And up until a few years ago, they owned parts of both Chipotle and Boston Market. And
Berkshire Hathaway owns Dairy Queen. They own the Pampered Chef, by the way. For using
Pampered Chef?
Pampered Chef. They own half of the Heinz Company. Fruit of the Loom. Just a few as I scroll down the list. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Hellsberg Diamonds.
And one thing people don't realize, especially if you're going to the grocery store, almost all of the house brand stuff that's there is actually stuff made by the major companies. So if you're buying Aldi's ketchup, you might actually be buying Heinz. You don't know. Canfield's just
Oriental Trading, Duracell. That happens a lot. In fact, there's
mustard,
some companies.
I like to buy Plotchman's because they're a local company, and B, they make this kick-ass beer mustard under their Coscuso brand.
Yeah, there you go. Again, I'm pure capitalist, man. Go for it. Make as much money as you can. When you're asking me for the money, we're going to have to discuss that.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
That's all. We're going to have to discuss that.
Yeah, there's not really a whole ton of time for me to tell my situation, but I don't care. This is a good episode. But in a nutshell, born into a Democrat family, went through the religious experience back in '89, and then I'm like, oh wow, the Democrats are immoral, and so I quickly became a Republican. And then over time, while I was still a church boy, I was a good church boy. I listened to Rush Limbaugh all the time and had both of his books. and I would, from time to time, read stuff that he suggested. And one time there's a really good autobiography out there called Radical Son, which is by David Horowitz. He's a real hardline right-wing Republican, but he's got some interesting experiences in that. So I highly recommend that book. But Rush Limbaugh also one time actually recommended the book The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich Hayek, which my first clue that there was something interesting here was that when I picked up the book from the bookstore and I looked on the back, you know how sometimes they have like a little description of what category it goes in? It said libertarian. So I bought the book and I read it, and I don't even know where my copy is now. I lost it somewhere in the last couple of years. I got to get a new one. And I read it, and I would reread it and go back and highlight stuff. And then it's like, wow, this is some good stuff. And then somewhere along the line, I took the world's smallest political quiz. And I actually did vote for a libertarian candidate for governor of Illinois before then, because I just didn't like the Democrat or the Republican. Of course, one of the guys at church was like, well, you know that the libertarian candidate supports prostitution. And I know, oh, really? Nowadays, I'm like, oh, so what? But and then I took the world's smallest political quiz, and I got some more information, and then I'm like thinking, then I got the book Libertarianism in One Lesson. And by the way, they also have an interesting book called I can't remember it, but it's about libertarianism and religion, and basically why religious people should be libertarians. And in my journey in the process of doing this podcast, I've met quite a few people of all different religions that are libertarianism. Friend of the show, Will Coley, he is the president of Muslims for Liberty. He's a convert to Muslim. He's I think he describes himself as a redneck Muslim. He grew up in Tennessee. He still lives there, and he's got a farm, and he has rabbits and everything. And
it's funny, but I understand that. If you want to be a Muslim and not live in a tyrannical theocracy, I get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Most people just want to practice what they want to practice without anybody making any sort of a value judgment or against them. And as George Carlin once said, live and let live. That's my motto. Live and let live. Anybody doesn't agree with that, take them outside and shoot the MFer. Simple philosophy, but it's always worked in my family.
Yeah.
But with that, we're just about out of time. I'm going to just remind people here that we're going to be off for 2 more weeks. This is our last show on radio.
A little off.
Yeah. And so we're going to, this is our last show on Radio Fubar. We will friend us on Facebook, circle us on Google+. We will get you the new URL once we go live, but we are still going to do these shows live on Google+ once we come back from our 2-week hiatus. And you can still always hear us on tuiville.com at noon on Sundays. We will always be there. We'll be on LRN, and I'm actually talking to them. I'm trying to find out if LRN.FM to see if maybe we can't get a live slot on there, because I looked and they just rerun podcasts during the time we do our show, so you never know. And you can call us at 815-200-4912. Our Twitter is the Side Project 2, and our email is the Side Project 2 at Gmail, and you can use the hashtag TSP Live. Find us on iTunes, tsplive.com, which will take you to our new site. Tune in radio on the smartphone, on your smartphone, tablet, or Roku box. You can search for the Side Project Live on that. And if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/TSP Live, and you make a low per episode donation. And as I said before, if you want to buy me a GoPro camera, I'm not going to turn it down. So once again, from Morris, Illinois, this is Jimmy G.
And from Lockport, Illinois, it's Eric Ferguson. And do this. In the Wikipedia, there's list of corporate assets. That's the entry. And there's then a list of all these other ones and their lists. So you can find all kinds of stuff.
So once again, we will see you in 2 weeks. And so have a good 2 weeks, and we'll go from there.
intro and outro music is the song Springtide by the band Springtide. Visit them at www.springtide.jp.